All right, so my name's Paul Clinton. My company is The Right Way Inc. We focus on targeted strategic marketing, mostly in the B2B realm. And with me today is Sean Lyden, and I'm going to let Sean introduce himself and his company a little bit. And then after that, we're gonna talk about sales and marketing. Sean is a very successful sales trainer. So we're going to talk today about, the importance or the opportunities and potentially downfalls of the integration of sales and marketing or lack of integration of sales and marketing. But let's hear from Sean for a few minutes.
Awesome. Well, Paul, I'm so glad to be able to jam with you today. My name is Sean Lyden. I'm the founder of Systematic Selling. And what we do is we provide sales systems, coaching, and training for growth minded owners and their sales teams looking to scale their sales without the chaos. And the way we achieve that is we teach a no pressure, no drama approach to sales that says sales isn't about convincing people to buy, it's about finding or creating alignment between the customer's problem and your solution. And man, I've been looking forward to this conversation because there is traditionally a lot of dysfunction between sales and marketing. And knowing the distinctions and then how they can work together is a way of solving that problem.
And you typically work, I'll let you speak for yourself. I should say, I'll say typically who I work with is the clients who I work with are typically, automotive or transportation related companies. Usually
Yep.
they're software as a service. Technology companies who are selling either hardware or software to automotive and transportation related businesses.
Yep.
So they might be more of kind of the mid-market or near enterprise level companies. And so they have likely would have potentially either like a CMO or a vice president of marketing or marketing director on one hand, and then they would typically have like a CRO or a sales director on the other hand. So they would have usually somewhat defined sales, and marketing, distinct teams, departments.
Yep.
And so, we can talk a little bit about that. Maybe it would be helpful for you to talk a little bit about maybe the folks you deal with.
Yeah, I'm on the SMB side of things. So smaller companies in the service trades. So most of them specialize in commercial services. And then I've got a handful of home service clients as well. And for the most part, they understand that there is a distinction between marketing and sales. The challenge for them is where they put that money, that investment, and how they don't necessarily, in a lot of cases, understand how they work together, what the limitations of marketing is, and where sales steps in, and what the limitations of sales and where marketing steps in. That's a huge distinction, I think, for both tiers of companies that you and I work with.
And give me your take on this. So a lot of the discussion, in my world, seems to kind of focus on the sales pipeline
Yep.
and the kind of um, how a lead or a prospect would move through that sales pipeline,
Yep.
and not only that, but where it would come from.
Hmm.
So, a marketing team, perhaps, if a lead comes in from like an inbound marketing campaign, let's say on a social media platform or even another platform, that lead a lot of times would be labeled as an MQL, a
Hmm.
marketing qualified lead.
Yep.
And then, the idea would be that there would be some type of a handoff. So that lead would be moved forward into perhaps like a sales discovery call.
Hmm.
And there's different ways of doing that, of course. And then at some point, that lead might be relabeled as an SQL, a sales qualified lead,
Yep.
perhaps after, one sales call or or whatnot. And then another example of like an SQL could be maybe a lead that came in from the sales team into the sales pipeline.
Yeah.
So, we get a lot of discussion about, how to label these leads or where they came from.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, in my opinion, is that we really have to set up kind of a sales pipeline that the sales and the marketing teams can both kind of own and
Hmm.
both kind of understand that there's a structure here. And we can kind of get into a little bit more on the details on that. But
Okay.
is that, does that play out in that way, in your world in terms of that sales pipeline and the discussion about where the leads are coming from and then how we can kind of move them down the pipeline?
They do specifically on the home services side that's marketing driven for lead generation. So to give you an example, on the commercial services side, I work with some heavy commercial companies in the trades that generate 10 million or more, and they have a zero marketing spend. They don't spend anything on
Mhm.
marketing. They'd prefer not to have inbound, but the inbound that they get, they use to train new sales reps on. They're
Okay.
sort of the low risk leads for them to work with, learn their sales processes and so forth, and then eventually graduate to these higher qualified leads that would come specifically through outbound and prospecting. So in
Hmm.
that realm,
Hmm.
they are very sales driven. In the
Hmm.
home services, that that's a different category, meaning that they generate their lead flow through marketing, through paid ads, through social, through SEO, and so it is critical for those leads coming in to figure out, okay, where are we getting our best return on ad spend,
Hmm.
return on our marketing dollars, and how qualified are those leads when it's handed off to an estimator to go out to do a site visit at someone's home to then proceed with what you would call discovery, and in home services that's called the site visit,
Hmm.
to assess what the estimate will be when they put it together. So
Hmm.
those are the two different realms that I deal with. Home
Hmm.
services marketing's very heavy,
Hmm.
heavy commercial. It's sales driven because it's developed through relationships, long-term relationships with recurring revenue accounts.
So you opened up a couple of interesting ideas there that I wanted to get into because I do get the sense that there are a number of businesses out there that are on the smaller side that really refer, and then maybe these businesses are established, they've been around a little while, and
Mm-hmm.
so they really rely on referral business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad thing. So, a lot of our business is, through people who, a job was done and we did a good job. And then their friend, they recommend it to their friend or their family
Sure.
member or their auntie or whoever it is.
Sure.
And we get another job. And that is not a bad starting point for a business.
Yep.
But my belief is that when you rely on a referral business, you have a ceiling.
Yep.
In other words, you're going to have difficulty scaling that business beyond a certain point because you're at the mercy of someone else referring you to somebody else.
Yep.
Whereas when we implement, marketing systems and marketing processes, we can actually sort of take control of the lever of business growth by bringing in leads
Yep.
and what I would say bringing in higher quality leads. So to me, the function of a good marketing campaign is kind of twofold, right? It's number
Yep.
one, it's a way to tell the story of the business. In
Yep.
other words, what problems do we solve for our potential customers?
Yeah.
Who are we? And then how do we help? Like, how do we solve those problems? And
Yeah.
then number two, it's a way to improve the leads we're getting or to get better leads. And so when I say, getting higher quality leads, what I mean by that is getting a lead that is more ready to buy from us, and might be, like a warmer lead. We can talk about like the difference between cold outreach and warm outreach.
Yeah.
But warm outreach, getting somebody, talking to somebody in the sales process, you would be better to answer it than I would. But I would think that the function of marketing is to deliver more of a warmer lead to the sales team, and that might be helpful versus a cold lead. But anyway, that's my
Yeah.
view of like the purpose of marketing.
Yeah. A couple things there. One, to piggyback off of what you just said, if I were to think of a metaphor that would describe the differentiation between sales and marketing, I see it in military terms. So I see sales as sort of a sales team being special forces, elite forces, boots on the ground, going into quote unquote enemy territory to identify where the targets are.
Hmm.
So they are boots on the ground. They're providing human intelligence. They are getting a clear understanding of what messaging resonates, what doesn't,
Hmm.
and on that ground intelligence then informs marketing, which is the air cover.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
sales identifies the targets,
Hmm.
they provide it, they identify it, and they
Hmm.
show marketing where it is, and then marketing comes in and softens the ground, so to
Hmm.
speak, to
Hmm.
allow the ground troops to advance into that territory. That's where what you're talking about in terms of branding and building trust and so forth through your marketing to make that in a much easier advance for the sales team.
Hmm.
So completely get that. Now,
Hmm.
I do want to make a distinction when you're talking about referrals. Yes, you're exactly right. You don't want to build a business completely dependent upon referrals. But I would say that is only one aspect of sales. So when I think of prospecting, there tends to be these components. One is networking, that is in-person networking, which is a act relationships that, if you
Hmm.
do it right, lead to business. It has what I call a numbers game with a compound effect. It's huge.
Hmm.
Second is what I call systematic social selling. It
Hmm.
is being intentional with, say, LinkedIn in the B2B space, not where you are being salesy, but you're treating LinkedIn like it is a networking event, a networking platform. So
Hmm.
again, you're building relationships, but now you're building it at scale, not just defined by your physical location.
Hmm.
That's huge. There's so many tools in there between
Absolutely.
cultivating that relationship, not only through posts, part of
Hmm.
it, which you might say is marketing, some of it's just who you are as a personal brand, as a sales rep, as a founder, and so forth.
Hmm.
And so you cultivate those relationships that way.
Hmm.
Another component of sales is what I call outreach.
Hmm.
It can be cold calls, but it depends on the type of business you're in on whether or not cold calls will be effective. It can be simply, you know, stop by visits.
Hmm.
You see a job site if you're in the trades, and you stop by and say, "Hey, is there someone else, would you ever be open to getting a quote from an electrician, a competitive quote, see if you'd be open to exploring another partner, or if they're in drywall repair, or whatever the case might be." So those are tangible ways of outreach. What
Hmm.
you're talking about with marketing allows once once you have that messaging honed and you know what your targets are and
Hmm.
you're ready to take that next step of scale,
Hmm.
that's where marketing can make that happen. It is a scaling leverage. That's my perspective, and I could be
Yeah.
completely wrong, but that's how I have viewed it.
No, that's good. And actually, also to go back to your military example, which I think is a good one, which, to look at this military example is interesting because, when we think about just from a business standpoint, let's just take out sales and marketing out of the picture right now and just say we're a business. We have a product or service, and we would like to grow that business. Now, I guess not everybody wants to grow their business. There are people who are smaller or solopreneurs and they're maxed out or they've reached a certain level and that's okay for them. I know a lot of people like that. They don't want to scale their business, no problem. But if you do want to grow your business, every, and even if you don't want to grow your business, you need to know who your ideal customer is.
Yes.
So there are a number of things that I think need to be done up front. You know, um, Many companies now have an ideal customer profile. This is something that an ICP. And it's important to have a detailed ICP. So what's in that, and we can go into that later. But
Yep.
that's actually a sales tool, in some ways, and a marketing tool, because it's helpful for both sides of the equation to understand who we're actually selling to. So I've had this experience in my marketing agency where I talk to somebody and I take them on they're like a new client. I start working with
Hmm.
them, and one
Hmm.
of the first questions I ask them is who's your ideal customer? And in some cases they will say everybody.
Yep.
And it's just an example of a company that hasn't done the work yet. Um, because honestly, everybody, unless you're Coca-Cola, or
Yep.
Amazon,
Yep.
probably everybody isn't your customer.
Yep.
So, getting that ideal customer, really dialed in, whether it's demographic or psychographic or behavioral, or just really understanding, who that ideal customer is. And then taking the next step of doing the buyer persona. So taking a look at a buyer persona, developing that for your
Hmm.
business and looking at who beyond just the industry or the market vertical, who is the actual person that is buying. Is it a woman? Is it somebody who's in their 50s? Is it somebody who's, has, middle income or higher income, or, knowing the actual details, and how did they buy? And a
Yeah.
lot of times in the B2B realm, we have teams now, procurement teams. And in B2B, I think I read the statistic that there's an average of 7 to 8 people involved in purchasing decisions. I would imagine maybe in the smaller trade business, it's probably the owner,
Hmm.
but he might be relying on other people around him. But we do have to, regardless of what it is, I think it's really important to understand all of these things and to kind of have this in writing. To have an
Yeah.
ICP in writing, to have buyer personas in writing, and then I think when you do that, then doing the messaging, the go-to-market messaging, is going to be a heck of a lot easier.
I completely agree. In fact, that's where a huge amount of crossover is in the systematic selling framework. System number one, so the starting point
Mhm.
is messaging, meaning core messaging, your elevator pitch, and everything else that stems from your ICP. So, ICP is the absolute starting point in sales and in marketing. So, in my playbook and then sales playbooks that I develop for my clients, that that component is part of the playbook. And it's important because in my own business, I use my ICP as a core anytime I'm putting together a creative brief for those who do my marketing. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
it that is what I would call a shared asset
Hmm.
between the sales and marketing departments, and that has to be defined. I do what's going to be a little different, though it helps marketing, but is absolutely vital for sales, is that you have a quantitative aspect to your ICP and a qualitative aspect. The
Hmm.
quantitative aspect is, are we going after the right size company, the right title,
Hmm.
so forth, right number of employees? There's a spec to what
Hmm.
you're looking for, the right industry. The qualitative is, do they fit us? Do they align? Is
Hmm.
this an account that we want to work with? So it's, who should we pursue? And just as importantly, who should we avoid? What are the red flags? Because the who should we avoid can match the quantitative part of your ICP, but it will bring a lot of toxicity to the company if you take them on. They're going to be high maintenance. They're going to be, they will try to beat you up on price every single time, or you perform the work like in commercial services. And next thing you know, you've got invoice disputes and you're having to deal with those. So, having clarity on your ICP up front
Hmm.
so that your sales team knows I have the freedom and discretion to turn down this lead
Hmm.
is absolutely huge. So I'm a big fan of ICPs, how it impacts sales, and then also how you hand it over to marketing. And if marketing knows the types that we want to avoid, that can help them in their messaging as well.
We see these, and maybe we can talk about a few of the dysfunctions about, when sales and marketing aren't aligned.
Yep.
The big one that I've seen, in the work that I've done, relates more to, I would say, like market verticals. So, as part of your ICP, you're kind of understanding, what industry you're selling
Mm-hmm.
into. But even within that industry, we see kind of these smaller market verticals.
Yep.
And then that can actually kind of ladder down to like buyer personas. But I had a client, for example, who sold telematics services to plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and they did have some customers who were trucking companies, and they were their sales team was spending a lot of its attention selling um, compliance technology that monitor hours of service and things like that
Yep.
into to their client base. This was kind of trucking based technology,
Mm-hmm.
and when they started looking a little bit more deeply into who their ideal customer was, they found out that something like 70 their current customer base were these field service businesses.
Yep.
So their sales team was spending way too much time, and I think their trucking business was maybe 15% of their business,
Yep.
and the rest of it was, I think, government client. Smash
Yeah.
there. So when they're looking at the products and the services, we're focusing on a product. Our sales team is focusing on a product for the 15 to 20% of our audience, when all these other products, like video and tracking and other things, we should have been selling those because the 75% or 65 to 75% of our customer base wanted
Yep.
that and didn't want the trucking technology. So to me, that was an example of just a major mismatch and not knowing, not having that alignment, and not, the marketing team. and the sales team just didn't, they just weren't singing from the same, hymnal.
Yeah, and I see, on a smaller company level, a situation like that is is more of a triangle, meaning you've got sales is going out doing this and they're calling on trucking companies because for whatever reason they are. You got marketing over here going, yeah, but trucking is only 25% of your business, 75% is over at field service and these other places. What you got to have is the C
Oh yeah.
suite, which is the tip of the triangle, going, which business should we be in? It may very well
Yeah.
be that the going into the transportation and trucking is where we want to go because whatever the case might be, we'll get 45, 50%
Hmm.
gross margins, whereas over here we're at 30%.
Hmm.
And so strategically, we want to make a shift. But
Hmm.
without that data,
Hmm.
both sales and marketing are operating on islands.
Hmm.
And neither one has the ultimate, is able to be the arbiter of truth.
Hmm.
So that's where having strong C level leadership to go strategically, where do we want to go? Could be the 75% going, hey, sales,
Hmm.
look over here. This is where we need to go. In fact, we are going to transition out of trucking. We're going to go all in field service. That's a strategic question.
Hmm.
Too often in both small companies and in large, they just defer it to say, Mark, hate to say it, but in my experience, marketing becomes the punching bag.
Right.
So because sales, if they're performing, they're paying for themselves, and is and it's clear based on what they're earning, they can kind of justify their existence with clear KPIs.
Hmm.
It's marketing that gets kicked,
Yeah.
and of no fault of their own, because marketing's job is to execute what C level says, this is our strategy. And if
Hmm.
C level is MIA and not providing that, you're kind of left out on an island, man.
Well, and that's another disconnect that you just described is the what I call the data disconnect. So, sales might be looking, I mean, they probably have a CRM and they're looking at different data from the CRM. It
Yep.
could be business, it could be a deal pipeline. They could be looking at conversions from meetings or conversions from calls or what
Yep.
have you, and you can get all that. But then on the marketing side, we kind of look at this, fuzzy ROI of marketing. And, a lot of times, the mistake that marketing teams make is they focus a lot more on engagement. How many, views are we getting, or how many likes are we getting on social media, or things like that. And I think the key to marketing ROI is to tying it and linking it to business outcomes. So this is kind of where I was going with this, marketing and sales kind of both joint, co-owning the sales
Hmm.
pipeline, because as marketers we can come in there and we can help sales by looking at, okay, what is your sales process? We've defined that. Like maybe you have two calls, maybe you have a discovery call, maybe you have a presentation call, and then so the marketing team can be supplying and providing resources at each of these different touch points, along the sales pipeline, to support, moving that lead down the pipeline from maybe a lead to MQL, SQL to opportunity, to closed one. I mean, that's what we would like to do.
Yep.
But being able to kind of support that, those touch points at each point, and having the alignment. So if the sales team is selling the trucking product and the marketing team is talking about the vehicle tracking product, then we're not going to get there. But if we're all kind of, have an understanding of who that ideal customer is, and then at each of that points, at each of those points, the marketing team can provide a resource. Maybe it's an audit or of their website, or maybe it's some kind of template that we can offer, or maybe it's a kind of a video tutorial or walkthrough that we can give to the sales team to help them, better communicate, with the prospect, not only understanding their challenges, but then being able to ladder that back to our own services. But if we don't know any of those things and we're not coordinating, well, we're just going to have a disconnect.
Yeah, it's marketing pushing for data, sales pushing for the same data, and the two collaborating on what will drive these numbers. So, in a lot of the companies that I work with on the commercial side that are not heavy with marketing on lead gen, and again, the conversation there is if you're talking about, say, a SaaS company or a product company on the B2B side, throwing marketing towards lead gen is a great way of scaling that because you've got a fixed product and all of that. When you're talking about a services business, you can't get ahead of your skis.
Hmm.
So, too much lead gen when you've already, with your existing personnel and the existing number of techs,
Hmm.
to be able to handle the workflow that you have, too much lead gen flow creates a lot of chaos into the system.
Yeah.
And that's why they're very strategic on when they pull that lever. So that's why in that instance it's
Yeah.
not a huge thing. But where sales can, I mean, where marketing can bring the value is what I call sales enablement,
Hmm.
providing the tools that support, in this instance, support sales through their process.
Hmm.
For example, you scheduled an introductory 30-minute initial Zoom to see, hey, are we even aligned before we do a deeper dive discovery? Well,
Hmm.
it'd be great to have a crisp PowerPoint presentation that sales and marketing collaborated on. Go, you know what? This takes us through the progression as an introduction of who we are
Hmm.
and allows that customer and us to determine, hey, are we aligned to take the next step? That is an aspect. Crafting messaging
Hmm.
for follow ups, crafting messaging for, hey, we've scheduled a site visit. If we had messaging or videos that help build our credibility before the technician arrives at the site
Hmm.
visit, is
Yeah.
powerful. And I've got a client that does that, very good at it. And it's an automated sequence based on content that was already developed, videos and so
Mhm.
forth. And then being structured into, hey, let's pull some video content from what you do. I tell people all the time that, so my sales background was selling medium duty commercial trucks for GMC, Chevrolet, and Isuzu. If I were selling trucks today, I would I would be I would have marketing come out and video me doing vehicle walkarounds of the
Hmm.
new model year vehicles.
Oh yeah.
Talk about what has changed, why this is
Yeah.
impactful
Hmm.
for, fleet buyers and so forth. And I have a ton of contacts in the truck sales space, and none of them are doing it. It is a wasted opportunity. In fact, when I was working in the dealership, we would have walk around competitions to see how well we knew our product.
Oh, that's
Freaking
good.
record that, cut
Hmm.
it up, and put it out there.
Yeah.
So there's
Hmm.
so many missed opportunities that in the commercial B2B service space, where I see marketing bringing a ton of value is in that sales enablement support.
Mhm.
And then the home services side going, okay, how many, ultimately, how many SQLs do you guys need? Right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because marketing qualified leads is one thing. What matters to sales
Yeah.
and ultimately what matters to the owner is SQLs. And
Yeah.
so,
Converting them.
yeah, what can we do to
Yeah.
facilitate that? And what can we do on our end to provide reporting of where that's coming from so that we can double down investment there, cut back investment here?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think also, to your point, these field service companies or these service companies have really a great opportunity, to add a ton of value when they're doing these site visits. Because, let's say it's an HVAC company or a roofing company, they could easily, bring their camera and they could, offer that as part of our estimate, we'll give you like a video inspection of your roof or of your HVAC system, and we'll tell you exactly what's going on. And the free estimates have been part of the trade industries for years, but
Yep.
what if you just kind of made it a little more of a kind of a resource-based thing where you had videos where you could talk where you talked about here's what happens if you allow like the rats to kind of eat the edge of your roof
Yep.
for X number of, months or years. Like what could happen if you don't do anything about this? So not just the inspection itself, but then almost the kind of the education that surrounds that. To me, I just feel like that's a real opportunity for them to help in connecting with their prospects and getting warming up, so to speak, their prospects, and they will be more likely, I think, to show up. So you may even be more likely to buy from you versus one of your competitors who didn't do that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a that's a best practice of a lot of the uh, service trades right now, of your top tier. These people get it, and that's why they're crushing it, is
Hmm.
because they integrate that that level of service, that level of building credibility, increasing touch points.
Hmm.
So the way I always describe it is the trust continuum on the
Hmm.
sales cycle,
Hmm.
from 0 to 10. 0, I don't know you, I don't trust you, to
Hmm.
10, these are raving fans and they will beg to buy whatever you're willing to sell them.
Hmm.
And each touch point is an opportunity to nudge them to the right on the trust continuum, nudge them closer to 10.
Hmm.
So the best companies out there understand that concept. And so put together those they'll put together those videos. They will have them framed depending on where they are in that cycle. Is it pre the site visit? Okay, they will have a certain messaging there. Post site visit, before the scope review call, there's going to be a certain type of messaging there. Everything designed to move them along. And yes, that's exactly where marketing can come in to provide that support to nudge that prospect along the trust continuum.
Awesome. So I wanted to see, if you had any other ideas about, better ways or specific tactics, I guess, for achieving this kind of idealized dream that we're speaking about, where the sales and marketing teams are walking step in step and knowing what the right hand knowing what the left hand is doing all the time. And I think there are a couple of things, you can to improve the situation you may be in right now. Maybe you're in a situation where, as a business, sales and marketing efforts are a little bit disjointed, there are some ways that you can kind of bring those together. And I think one of them is to use a fairly full-featured CRM, a contact resource management. Now I know we don't have to talk about, we don't have to boost anybody's profile. I think, just a little internet research will reveal 5 or 10 good CRMs that you can use. But there
Yep.
are a lot of, in the age of AI, there are a lot more of these CRMs are adding marketing features, AI features to them,
Yep.
as opposed to kind of back in the day when CRMs were just basic contact management tools. When you use that, you're kind of missing out on an opportunity. I know the profit margins sometimes on these service businesses aren't through the roof. So a lot of the name of the game is controlling costs. I actually have talked to a number of plumbers and electricians and others where I was, learning whether I could help them. And
Yep.
I got the sense that a lot of it on the smaller side, when they only have, maybe less than 5 technicians, they're really in kind of a cost control mode.
Hmm.
But, maybe when you get a little beyond that point, if you use a full-featured CRM, you can set all these things up, that kind of ladder back, that start with the foundation of good contact management, but then adding automation, adding marketing emails, adding data reports that tell you what's happening, adding
Yep.
a deal pipeline that gives you a little bit more of sense of how the conversions are translating into to revenue for the business. But give me your
Yep.
thoughts on that one, and maybe you might have some others.
So, in terms of thoughts of how can we break down this divide between sales and marketing so that there's greater collaboration,
Yeah.
there's two things I have in mind depending on the size of the company. So the smaller companies, and I'm speaking to the founders and the owners of these companies, is bring strong leadership and incorporate both sales and marketing in these strategy meetings so
Hmm.
that there can be collaboration. Let them know precisely what their roles are, where they begin, where they end,
Hmm.
and show that integration, show the value, explain the value of them collaborating together instead of competing against each other,
Hmm.
so that marketing understands exactly what it is doing and how it's contributing to the pipeline, and sales understands exactly what marketing is doing and contributing to their success. That comes from the top. If that's not clear, that collaboration won't happen and you will have
Hmm.
dysfunction. Everyone loses in that scenario. So
Hmm.
bring that leadership. Secondly, if you're in a larger company, you're in the marketing department, you're in the sales department. Instead of complaining that sales isn't listening to you or marketing isn't listening to you because for whatever reason there's a disconnect with senior leadership, but you're still accountable for your
Hmm.
KPIs,
Hmm.
reach out to the other side. Meaning,
Yes.
hey, let's talk. If you're in sales, you go, hey, let's talk. Is there any way that we could get these types of resources when we're out in the field? This would really help. Hey, is there any way that we can bump up what we're doing on socials? Is there any way that you can provide
Hmm.
someone to film me while I'm doing this? Or if I film this, is there any way on the back end you can take this and turn this into posts that I can do on my personal account and we can also do on the company account? That's sales reaching out to marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing going, hey, you know what? It'd be smart if we interviewed some of our sales reps to
Hmm.
ensure that we're on the right track with our messaging.
Hmm.
And as you're developing marketing messaging, reaching out to these sales reps in a conversation, not just sending it to them going, hey, what do you think? I got to
Yeah.
spend an hour,
Yeah.
typing out a reply versus, hey, can you take 10 minutes, hop on the Zoom? I want to run something by you, get your feedback on it. And then you get that live feedback and go, you know what? That's super helpful because no one is closer to the customer than sales. So marketing, break down that barrier and do it. So that's the two things.
Yeah.
One, small company, top down, big company, lateral, own your space, reach over to the other side.
That's really great, and just to kind of add a little bit of color to that, I think one thing that isn't always valued in these companies that I see is really bringing the voice of the customer to the forefront in the marketing campaign. And so the sales team, as you said, you're absolutely correct. The sales team is closest to the customer. And it's really important to get, not only like testimonials from customers, but also to do case studies, to build stories around the customer journey. So
Yep.
customer A, B, or C came to us with these problems. Here's what we did and here's how we helped the customer. We didn't do it for them. We supported them, and here's how we helped them.
Mm-hmm.
And here are the results they got
Yep.
by using product XYZ. And they don't have to be lengthy. And a lot of times now you can put these things on video. You can jump on a Zoom call with a customer and just kind of do it over video. Video is a great format for building trust. So doing a written case study is not bad. It's better than nothing. But doing a video case study where the customer actually kind of walks through the before, the during, and the results.
Yep.
And I think those things can be very powerful. A lot of times the marketing team doesn't ask the sales team to do it. A lot of times the sales team says, "Oh, customers don't want to talk, or they won't be quoted, or they're afraid of angering customers." That they have to ask for a renewal in 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
but it's okay. We can ask these type of questions. I think making the customer, the centerpiece of our marketing campaign is what we should be doing. And I think the
Yep.
customers will like that. If we make them look good, we just quote them accurately. We talk about the results and the success they're getting.
Yep.
We're not going to make them look bad. We're making them look good. So
Yeah.
I would think they would want to talk to us.
Yeah. Completely agree.
So I just think it's great. Having a customer centric marketing campaign is what I love, and
Yep.
what we try to help our clients get to. The messaging sometimes can be a little bit too company focused,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the awards we've won or the senior management news we have or the product updates we have. And those are okay, but we really just need to make sure that anything really we're saying to our audience and to the world puts the customer at the center of that. It's a lot easier said than done. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just listening to myself say it, and I'm thinking, gosh, oh, Paul, that's so obvious.
Yeah.
But it's just funny how a lot of times companies don't do it.
I agree. It's simple, but not necessarily easy to execute.
Yeah. But I loved everything you said about that. The thing that I really liked about including them in the planning meetings and asking for feedback. Because when you ask each other for feedback, when the sales and the marketing teams ask each other for feedback and what's working, I think that really creates a stronger bond. And even if we sometimes disagree with one another, that's okay. But as long as we try to, make it, not personal, don't make it personal.
Yep.
But just, it's okay if we have different perspectives and we disagree with each other in even in a more emotional way, but then we come back to work the next day, and we realize that all of that is part of the refining of our go-to-market messaging and our pipeline, of the prospects who are coming into our pipeline, to your point, to making sure that they're a right fit, that we're not and putting them in our CRM and making them part of our sales pipeline.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because
So,
you
I'm
just
sure you've seen that happen
change.
a few times.
Yeah, and
So,
you just all of that's noise, and you want to focus on the leads that deserve your attention, should get your attention.
yeah.
Well, well, man, thank you so
Yeah.
much for inviting
Mm,
me on to jam with you. I always love talking about both sales and marketing. I came from both sides of the equation. So been
yeah.
been with a marketing agency, and I came from sales. So having that
Awesome.
mixture, I have empathy for what marketing goes through, and I can tell you I've been in situations where a company that I had worked with from a copywriting side, they went through four marketing directors in the span of 18 months,
Ouch.
you know, and it just went to it just goes to show that marketing is one of those things that in smaller companies the owner needs to own,
Mhm.
and in the bigger companies the department has to show what impact that they're making, so that
100%.
senior leadership understands, sales understands. You do that, then you'll have success.
100%. Well, this was such a great conversation, and I
Too,
can
Paul.
tell, we both have some good stuff to say, but thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk about this.
Too, Paul.
And I really think it's an important message that a lot of businesses need to hear, even though it seems so simple and it seems so obvious. I think when we talk about this in an integrated way, I hope this will be just the beginning of a lot of conversations that are happening out there in companies as well, about this. And I know they're happening, and I know a lot of companies are getting more sophisticated about this. So I just hope we're
Yep.
part of this great conversation where we're helping businesses grow and scale the way the owners want them to. That's I think everybody's goal is that we want businesses to be able to grow and scale as they want to.
100%. Great topic. I think it's timely, and definitely hope whatever little bit that we've done in this conversation can help be a contribution to the solution.